Good afternoon. I'm Sunny, the CEO and founder of Fulcrum, and really happy to be in front of the Fabricator audience and talking to you guys. The goal of today's live stream is to share with you all the hard work that our engineering and product team has been up to over the last few years and over the last year specifically. We've added a ton of features. We've responded to a lot of stuff that our customers asked us for, and we're seeing a lot of really great results and really great feedback from the end users that use the product, which is really important to us. Today, we have Tyler, who runs sales here at Fulcrum, who's going to demo a lot of the things that we have, and we'll talk to you about how we see the world, why we think that manufacturing is so important, why we work so hard on making sure that the tools that you have to use and get to use are really elegant, really well designed, and really useful. There's a lot of folks that have generously contributed their time, customers of ours that have flown here to Minneapolis to get a steak dinner, but also to record a podcast and talk to us about their journeys as business owners, how they started the business, where they are now, and what they see the problems are. And the theme that we hear over and over and over again is that it's going to be continuously be hard to hire people. Robots are not the full solution. What we need is a better way to coordinate between people and to make decisions about what to do, so that we can free the team up to go build complicated and useful parts for the entire supply chain. That's really what the core of our mission is to take a generational leap forward in the underlying brain of your business. The mechanical mind of your business needs to be updated and needs to be at the same level of advancement and technological love as the mechanical muscles, the CNC machines and the laser cutters and the rubber extruders and all the devices that help you make more parts in less time. With that, I'll turn it over to Tyler. For context, Tyler was one of the first people that we hired years ago, almost a decade ago. He traveled with me all around the US and around the world, visiting manufacturers, touring things. Without any background in manufacturing, over the course of a long period of time, he's visited hundreds and hundreds of manufacturers, learned really, really deeply what problems face small manufacturers and medium-sized manufacturers in the US and abroad, and can speak very specifically on our product and the changes that it helps our customers create. So Tyler.
Yeah, thanks. We'll stay fairly high level on the demo today and the walkthrough, but what you'll start to notice as we start to get into things and go through the platform is what we're looking to address here as a product is something that we just didn't really see any other ERP systems or really any other technology looking to tackle. The early ERP systems that came about in the late 70s, early 80s were helping companies transition from lots of filing cabinets and disorganization to a place where they could keep and maintain and store all of their data in one place under one roof. That was the primary challenge that manufacturers had at that point in time. Computers were also starting to become more and more prevalent, and they were helping people get data from filing cabinets into computers, some sort of digitalization. And they really haven't evolved much from that. Different companies have put a new interface on them, some more modern than others throughout the years. But for the most part, that's still the problem that they've been built to address. But that's not really the problems that we see manufacturers facing today. What we see people struggling with is kind of a problem that Amazon caused, to be honest, is everybody believes they can get things in 2 days now. Everybody wants things faster and faster, placing a greater importance on lead times. People are winning and losing jobs because they can't get work out fast enough. And then because scheduling is becoming so important, what's tied to that is purchasing. If you need to be able to understand how quickly you can get this to somebody, and subsequently how fast you can get the raw materials to make this part, to be able to promise them that. And being able to anticipate that, predict that, is becoming harder and harder, and that's not really what previous ERP systems were built to address. So that's as I start to share my screen and get into things, you'll notice that everything is just this interconnected network of live data where we can sort of eliminate the visibility gap between the shop floor and the office, where we can understand when we've had to scrap material and now need to purchase more, and how, if we are running behind on jobs and when a machine is shut down, how that's going to impact our deliveries. So I will get into this here. So like I mentioned, we'll stay fairly high level. There's a lot of different workflows that we can support. I'll talk through some of them more generally here, but if you have any specific questions, just drop them in the chat and we can address those on the Q&A. Or if you want to talk further, we can set up some time to do that later. But everything in Fulcrum is cloud-based, so it's accessed through any device with a browser, whether that's a phone, a tablet, a computer. Oftentimes things will start in the quote side of things. Now we integrate with various quoting tools and applications, and some companies that we work with that are product shops just bypass quoting completely, and we may pull things in directly to our sales order page through maybe some sort of e-commerce channel. But from a quoting standpoint, there's a couple different ways that somebody may create a quote. Typically, we're working with companies that are doing one of three things. They're either rerunning an item, maybe something custom, maybe a product, but something that they've made before. There is a known bill of materials. There is a known routing structure. We know how to make it. So let's just say we have this satellite dish, something we've made before. Another scenario is something completely new. Maybe it's a prototype that we don't know how to make it. We don't yet know what materials will be involved. And so it's just going to be a brand new item. Other things are what we call configurable items. It may follow some general structure, but you might change some raw materials. Maybe we're going to sub out aluminum for steel, or instead of a 12-foot bar, we're going to do a 10-foot bar. So different changes there. But to keep things simple, we'll just stay with this satellite dish. Again, it has a some known drawings, CAD files, 2D images, whatever it may be, and it has some known structure of how to make this. So this is letting us know that this will first be cut, then it'll be drilled, then we'll have some sort of assembly, a couple assembly steps and inspection before we ship it out. This happens to be an item that has multiple tiers in the routing structure. So to make this satellite dish, we will also need to make a solar panel. And to make that solar panel, we'll have to cut it and put it on the mill and weld it and do some assembly work. So the system has an understanding that we may have to make these subcomponents up, make these ahead of time to be able to have them ready for a specific step. Like this solar panel may have to be ready by the time it gets to full assembly, and we can indicate what step it needs to be ready for. So that's how the item itself is being set up in the system. If we want to get more granular, we're starting to record how long the setup and run times are, because we want to help you get more and more accurate on your job costing information to know exactly how to price these parts when you're quoting them out. Supporting different kinds of price breaks, understanding what materials we have in inventory, what of these finished goods we have in inventory. If we build any of those subcomponents up to some stock levels, those can be indicated in the system as well. But what we're rolling everything up towards is putting it all onto a PDF document where you can email it directly off to the customer through the platform, instead of having to download the file, open your email system, drag it in as an attachment, send it off from there. We want to be able just to keep things moving through the system. So typically after things have been created as a quote, they'll just convert to a sales order. It's just clicking that you've won the order, having it you've won the quote, and having it automatically convert to a sales order. When you have a sales order, you can start to plug in any types of due dates. We actually recently rolled out this cool tool where we can calculate what dates you should promise your customer or could promise your customer given the priority levels. And this is taking a lot of factors into account. It's understanding what our capacity loads are right now, what shifts we have scheduled to run, in the next few weeks. Also understanding what materials we have available. For any materials we don't have available, understanding the lead times associated with those. So running a lot of calculations in the background for what right now for a lot of companies is really just guesswork. We want to have a data-driven approach where we can be more confident in what dates we're promising our customers, so we can be seen as a more reliable company to take orders from. So rolling everything up in the sales order, will then, once this hits, becomes approved, it will be sent to a jobs page. Now, this page is a general understanding of every order that exists in your shop right now. It's everything that the team is working on, whether it's just in some early review stage or whether it's been scheduled or at some percentage of completion in the shop floor. There's a lot of different indicators that you can get from looking at this screen. And this screen is something that we've seen helping just a lot of companies for a couple of reasons. One, in a lot of systems right now, just to get an understanding of what jobs are late or what your open orders are, you have to run some general report. You might have to pay your ERP system to get an add-on, like a Crystal Reports add-on, then pay someone to write you a SQL query that can, have a canned report for you that just is your late jobs report. We want people to be able, because the data is all live, we want people to be able to just come to this page, understand exactly which jobs are late and when they were promised and when they were due, and then subsequently when we can get this done. So this is just letting us know that this job was due on February 28th. And given what's happening in our shop right now, given the personnel we have, given our shifts that we're running, given our capacity, this job will at this moment in time be done on March 3rd. Now, things can change. We're working with a lot of really dynamic environments where things change on a daily basis, but we want people to be proactive in letting their customers know exactly when they should be expecting the jobs that are coming in. Other things that I can get from this, I can see that this camera mount job, not only is it late, but it's over budget. This yellow indicator is letting me know that we're spending more money on this job than we expected to. And if I want to dive into that and get more detail, I can see that even though this isn't a completed job, even though it's still in production, we're calculating the job costing information associated with it. So I can see that we expected our labor cost to only be $18, and it's actually at $22 right now. So if I want to dive into that and understand why, I can see it's just this cutting operation, and I can see one of my employees. I can see which employee was working on this job and that they went over what we expected them to run here. So I can just get really granular with why things are running late, which people on my shop floor have tendencies to spend more time on jobs or overshoot the projected labor hours. But we also want to give you this summary table at the top of how much money you're making on each job specifically to help you narrow in on what your pricing should be and how you should, what margins you want to start generating and what items or products or goods you can price differently to make sure you're maximizing your profit margins. Any job that's on this jobs page, if it's something that's in review, typically what somebody is doing at this stage, might be somebody like a production manager or somebody that has an understanding and wants to be in control of what's going on the shop floor. What they may be doing is looking at the routing and looking at the bill of materials and saying, yes, these materials are the correct ones, and yes, this routing looks right. But the system is going to scan the bill of materials that's associated with this part, cross-check it with what's available in inventory right now, and then give you an understanding of what needs to be purchased. There's a couple different ways that purchasing can be done. If you are purchasing specifically to this job, this is where you would go to create the purchase orders, where it will just look at all of your vendors associated with each of these goods. It will auto create the purchase order for you, and similar to the quote, you can just send that purchase order out from here. If you're a company that sort of aggregates purchasing and rolls everything up, or places one PO to a vendor that might be raw materials across a variety of jobs, That's where things would roll through to this purchase planning screen, where we're taking a lot of factors into account, a lot of things that are typically done manually right now. It's understanding what our on-hand quantities are. If we have, some amount that we have overpicked our inventory here, but we always like to maintain at least 25 on hand. We have a demand of 10, but we also have 27 of these coming in. So what's happening in a lot of shops right now is somebody is just manually doing these calculations of, okay, if all of these factors are happening in my business, what does that mean? How much should I actually purchase? We want to do the math for you. That's what computers are good at, to be able to say, you need to buy 10 pieces. You typically buy 10 pieces from, so you typically buy this material from Solar Supplies. Last time you purchased it from them, it was $500. So we have created a purchase order for you to Solar Supplies for $5,000, and that will cover everything you'll need from this vendor. So we want to give you an understanding of what you need to purchase now, what is the highest priority, so that you can get ahead of that purchasing. And this is tied really closely, like I mentioned earlier, tied really closely into scheduling as due dates change, as priority levels change, as machines break down and things shift on your schedule. We want your purchasing person to know exactly when they should purchase materials, so that we don't have some buildup of raw material on the shelf, but we're also not delaying production on something because we just don't have material for it. So it's essentially one, brain, if you will, that's thinking of the purchasing to the scheduling to the job tracking, what's happening on that floor, instead of relying on verbal communication across all these different departments. Same general concept. If you're from a demand planning perspective, if you're a company that builds products up to some stock level, or maybe not even a product, but some shared component, subcomponent, subassembly, some shared make item that you could use across a variety of things, but you're not going to make those fully yet, since you might be a make to order shop. For those, it's a fairly similar screen and process, where we are helping to anticipate what you need to make and when you need to make it, taking into account, again, a general understanding of how much do you have on hand, how much do you typically like to have on hand, what are your min-max levels, what's the incoming demand, what's the demand for this, and have you purchased any, or are you making any right now already? And if so, what does that mean we do at this point? How many should we make, and when should we start making these? We want to, again, do all that math for you and tell you exactly when you need to make things, to make sure that we're keeping throughput up and improving our on-time deliveries and not delaying any other parts of production. All of these are funneled to this jobs page, which we talked about. And then from here, it's a process of just approving the jobs and then sending things straight to the schedule. So our schedule is where you're really getting a lot of the magic of sort of what we're sort of doing. We talk to a lot of companies on almost a daily basis that say their ERP systems have a difficult time scheduling jobs. The reason being is it's just a dynamic shop environment where things are changing all the time. And so just because something said it was going to have some, just because it said it was going to run for 45 minutes doesn't mean it's actually going to run for 45 minutes. It could be an hour and a half. It could be 30 minutes. And just that one job alone can have a snowball effect of what happens on the rest of the schedule. So just to minimize some of what we're looking at here on the screen, if I'm just looking at maybe a fabrication department or some specific machines, want to look at my mills and lathes and weld bay and some laser cutters over here. We want you to be able to see exactly what's happening on a machine, what order it will be running in. And this is what the system is sort of putting together for you. What we are cross-checking is a lot of different variables that are taken into account when scheduling happens, to make sure that we are optimizing the schedule to increase throughput and make sure that we can anticipate how things rearrange. It's maybe similar to how like Waze or Google Maps uses live data to constantly find you the optimal route to get to your destination, even if that route changes halfway through the process. That's the approach we want to take from a scheduling standpoint. We might have thought this job, 1113 was best to run on our Haas 2, but it looks like job 1048 is running late. This red outline means this is running late. Here's a job that's running right now. It's possible that this machine over here has capacity freeing up faster than we thought. And the way we know that is just by pulling this live data, that the system may say, hey, we're actually going to move job 1113 over to this machine here. We want to be able to be proactive in making these changes for you, instead of just relying on all this manual manipulation and sort of human intervention, someone running back and forth between the shop floor to understand what's moving slow, what's where we're having trouble on jobs, and then having to change the schedule over here in the office, and then having to come back to the shop floor to give people a new schedule. We'd rather just do the math for you, since that's what computers are good at, and allow production managers just to stay on the shop floor, helping the operators get things through. This is not the screen that operators would typically be working off of. That would look something like this, where I'm clocked into a tablet here, and these would be the jobs that I'm working on today, or what I'll be progressing through. So I can see that typically what we want them to do is just start at the top, work their way down. What we can see is this job up here is the first one for me to work on. So we can pull different images, whether it's a 3D drawing, whether it's a 2D file, anything, any specific work instructions that we need them to work off of. We can get them an understanding of what they're doing here. But what we really want them to know how to do, or what we want them to do, is clock into the job. This has this sort of ripple effect that happens across the business. As we're clocked into as the operator is clocked into the job here, there's a lot of things happening downstream. The job costing on the jobs page, it's starting to calculate, so that if you're an owner in the shop, that's where you can start seeing how much money you're making on jobs, or if you are losing money on that job, how much that happens to be. So again, you can be proactive and maybe putting a different operator on it that can try to salvage some of get things through a little faster and salvage some of that. Other things that it's I think that didn't screen share didn't work. Okay, other things that this is trickling down to is it's feeding sort of this real-time operation screen. We want you to be able to see in real time, if you're a production manager, everybody that's clocked into a job, where those jobs are, anything associated with it, just to get an understanding of visibility on what's happening in your shop floor without having to visit every single station of where people are working. The third thing that this is trickling down to is the schedule itself. Just like we talked about a minute ago, the schedule it's really valuable for the schedule to know if it needs to reroute you somewhere, or if there's a better path, or which jobs are running faster and slower, particularly in a shop that's doing any kind of custom work. But what we're also seeing is a couple other problems that are happening on the shop floor that are primarily driven by companies that are using paper travelers, or some form of some method that's sort of limiting communication from the shop floor to the office. We talk to companies all the time that tell us they can't trust their inventory limits or inventory levels, that those have gotten, they always have to have somebody go check the shop floor to actually count what's on the floor when new orders come in. And what we found is the biggest area that inventory gets thrown off and isn't really working is on the actual shop floor. When operators are picking material, we want operators to pick material directly in the site here. We want people to pick things through here so we can see exactly when it was picked. But also, if they did have to scrap some material, maybe they had to pick more than they thought they anticipated. And again, that could even have some trickle down effect. If they've overpicked and I had just enough to fulfill some other orders, well, now some other later order is going to be short that raw material. And how do we get that information to the purchasing person to make sure they purchase more material and time and backfill that. That's a big struggle and a big challenge for a lot of companies we talk to. Things are just heavily reliant on verbal communication to really run things. We want to have this effect where if an operator overpicks material, the purchasing person has another PO auto-generated for them that says, hey, somebody on the shop floor picked more than expected. You're going to be short. Here's a new one for you. Buy this, and that's just how we'll keep things running. Same general concept from a non-conformance report. If you're a shop that holds some ISO certification or maybe an AS9100 certification, something where you want to document your non-conformance reports, your corrective action reports. If you do have some area on the shop floor where something gets scrapped or something gets reworked, what a lot of companies are relying on is telling somebody, writing it on this paper traveler that somebody has to collect at the end of the day and then manually enter into a computer somewhere, if that ever happens. We want your operators to be able to say that they scrapped or something needed reworked and have that trigger a non-conformance report to the individual that's responsible for filling that out in the office. Again, trying to solve the problem of just this lack of communication between the shop floor and the office, create more of a streamlined flow of what's happening so everybody can be proactive, use this live data to be proactive in making decisions so that we don't have jobs just on hold, or we don't have audits that are coming up in the next few weeks where it's all hands on deck to get the paperwork together that we neglected for so long. So that's why this job tracking side of things is so important. What we talk to people about also pretty regularly, what we hear often is, my operators aren't tech savvy people. I don't believe that they could use a tablet on the shop floor. They're used to this paper traveler, and because they're used to this paper traveler, I don't see a future where we can get live data and we can be proactive and we can get rid of all this manual data entry. But what we found is actually inviting operators on a demo call has been really valuable. Showing them that, regardless of what language you speak or what technology background you have, clicking this green button is designed to be as intuitive as possible, where they understand they really just need to clock in. If we want them to start picking materials and putting in process inspection checkpoints, quality checkpoints, any kinds of measurements, they can. If we want them taking notes or taking pictures with the tablet where it sends those images to the office, they can start getting into that. But for the most part, just having them understand the importance of clocking into the system. So that's typically how companies are getting that information from the shop floor. When jobs are completed and jobs are ready to ship, they will pop up on this shipping interface where we have an understanding of what jobs are ready to ship. We have an understanding of which ones are late. If I were the production manager at this company, I probably would have been fired by now for having a 4% on-time delivery metric here. But understanding what's ready to go, what we can ship out, where myself as the shipping person, where I can find this material, whether it's in the staging area or whether it's still in a machine or whether it's been put back in inventory. We want you to see where I can find this location to go pick it. Same general process. We're creating the documentation, the pack slip associated with this. If you're a company that wants to introduce barcode scanning, QR code scanning, we also do that as well. This is the little indicator that will trigger the camera on your phone or your tablet or some device where you can just pick and pack and ship different pieces of different items that are ready to go to make sure things are shipped. If you're on a tablet or a phone and you click this add attachment button, it'll also trigger your camera. We work with a lot of companies that like to take pictures of what it is that they're shipping to make sure that if something was damaged in transit, they have the documentation of what this looked like or how many parts they were sending. So if there are any issues, they just have all that handy, and it's just sort of second nature. It's just stored in the system here. Then everything kind of funnels to There's if we're then sending the invoice after, we want to give your accounting person an understanding of what invoices are out there, which ones still need to be sent. We are auto creating those invoice documents as well. They can also be emailed through the system here. But we want you to have a general understanding of which invoices are paid, which ones are overdue. Use these sort of quick filters to understand, here's a few invoices that happen to be really late right now. So maybe I want to call this customer or follow up. But all of this is integrated typically with some core accounting platform. We work with about 5 or 6 primary accounting companies, but that number is sort of changing and increasing as we do more development in the system. But this was sort of just a high level overview of the system. There's more to get into with inventory and quality control and customers and vendors and a lot there. So if there's anything else that you're curious about or you want to dive into more, you want to see if this is the right fit for your business, again, you can do one of 2 things. You can either drop them here in the chat, or you can send me an email or anyone on the sales team an email, and we'd be happy to dive into that a little more with you. But we'll just go ahead and switch to the Q&A right now.
Questions that we got in the chat. So first, on the scheduling side of things, you might want to share your screen again to show these, but is it possible, I know you talked about the schedule automatically adjusting based on priority levels and due dates and things. Can they adjust it manually if they wanted to?
Yeah, you could adjust manually. There's the ability to turn on drag and drop. We built that feature because we know that's what a lot of people are comfortable with and have seen before. But what is really new and different and what we're doing is we want people to trust and understand that scheduling is essentially a giant math problem. There are tons of variables that are taken into account. There's a lot to understand, and what humans are doing when they're doing the scheduling is, whether they realize it or not, they're just doing that math in their head. Their experience of what they've seen before, of what jobs may run faster than others. It's all just some accumulation of data that they're making that decision on. What we've seen and talking to a lot of shops is really there's 3 primary reasons that someone would want to manually manipulate a job on the shop. The first is the due date has changed, so you want to move it around. The second is the priority level has changed, so you'll want to move it around. The third is it was going to run on this HOS 1 and now we just want to run it on the HOS 2. Those are the 3 primary reasons that anyone would ever get in and manually adjust the schedule. But those are also all 3 reasons all 3 things that our scheduler is taking into account when it's constantly scanning, looking for the optimal path and how it can increase throughput. So we really encourage our customers to let the automation take over, let it show you how to find the fastest path forward. But we do work with people that just are used to that control and that ability. So if you want to flip on,
perfectly into the next one. So if they want to adjust the priority and the due date of the job, like, do they do that in the schedule? Where do they do that so that it'll make the adjustments?
Yeah, there's a hyperlink on the schedule to the sales order itself. We want those changes to happen on the sales order. If a due date is changing, it's not just a scheduling change, it's an actual change to the order. And so we want any sort of priority levels, any sort of due date changes, we want those types of changes to happen on the sales order, so we have an understanding of what specifically changed, but also who changed it and when it was changed, so that we have that documentation. So all that can be accessed through the schedule itself, but also through the sales order page or the jobs page. And a lot of different avenues to do that.
So another one that came through is how can I know what sort of due date to promise the customer? How do they know like what timeline to quote?
Yeah, in our quoting and sales order section, we hit on this briefly. There's an ability to take a snapshot of this moment in time, what my capacity is, what my shifts are, what materials I have available. Given at this moment in time, what lead time should I promise somebody, or what can I promise? Now, if you're at the quoting stage and this quote isn't signed for 2 weeks, those things can change. That's why we've included this. It's just a button that calculates it for you. Again, it takes a snapshot of this moment in time and gives you the dates of when you should run it. But that's typically where people would get that information, either on the quote or the sales order.
The last question, just around pricing. How is the pricing structure? What does the pricing look like for something like this?
Yeah, it's it changes for depending on the size of the company we're working with. There's a lot of variables and factors that we take into account. We work with some, our smallest customer is a one-man, one machine shop, and we want to be able to help companies of that size, but also on the other end of the spectrum, we have some companies that are much larger than that. So the software is designed to be used by small businesses. That's the specific market that we really want to help and work with. Those are the companies that previously couldn't afford this type of software, afford anything that had automation. Typically the word automation meant had the connotation that it just meant expensive, and so expensive and unaffordable. And so we want to change that mindset in people and have people understand that small businesses are the backbone of manufacturing. They're the ones doing all the work and working with different vendors, and they're the ones having to understand how to do all the fabrication work, and then have to work with outside processors to do the plating or anodizing or some sort of finishing work and passing things around. So since that's the sort of industry where we see, or the market where we see a lot of these problems emerging, that's what we've designed the system to be able to handle. Our pricing structure is really broken down into 2 elements. The first is an implementation cost. It's a fixed cost and it's a one-time cost. We don't want people to end up with some half-implemented system where they have to choose between going well over budget to get things set up, or calling it quits, and now they have this half-implemented system that doesn't help anybody. So we want to offer a fixed fee where we can use our resources to make sure that everything gets set up properly, everything is working as it should, helping you get your data into the system, testing it, working with you on that process. Just a really hands-on approach to make sure that this the system is working in the way it should. Because our business model is reliant, it's a subscription service. That second cost is some annual subscription fee where we don't charge per user or per add-on or upgrades or data hosting or anything like that. We don't want you to feel like you're being nickel and dimed by your software company. We want to be able to give you all the tools you need to be successful in running your business, and not feel like you have to make a decision of, we just hired somebody new, do we pay for them to get a license, or do we have them share a license, or do they just keep data on a spreadsheet somewhere isolated that we don't ever see? So because that portion is so important to us, that's why it's also equally important for us to make sure that everything is implemented properly, so you are finding value in the system. It is something you want to continue to renew year after year. It also just puts the onus on us. It puts the onus on us as a software company to continue proving our value year after year after year, to show you that we are innovating, we are evolving, we're keeping you on cutting edge technology. And the moment we fail to do that, your contract can end and you're free
Cool.
to
Awesome. Well, thanks, Tyler. If people have questions or they want to follow up and talk to us further, you can find us and check us out at fulcrumpro.com. Otherwise, all of our emails are just first name. So it'd be Tyler at fulcrumpro.com. I'm Carolyn at fulcrumpro.com, or you can reach Sunny at fulcrumpro.com as well. So thank you all for coming, and have a great rest of your day.